Welcome to Will It Work? I'm Kevin, and today we're going to do the Atari Jaguar. I bought this for $150, used, I guess, at the record exchange back when these were, if not still, they were still available. They were still available. Somebody had traded it in, and it was just the full system. And because, it's a console that takes cartridges, they last a long time, so I wasn't too worried about it. And the exchange has a return policy if there was something wrong with it. And ultimately, it was the full system, and everything was fine with it. A lot of people just didn't want an Atari Jaguar. They got one for Christmas, and, they would rather have PlayStation or possibly one of the other consoles that were out, Sega Saturn, or there were some other ones like CD32, and there were like a lot of those 32-bit consoles or 16-bit / 32-bit consoles, CD consoles that started coming out. But yeah, so I have the Jaguar, and somebody did mention as well that they wanted to see, me playing the Jaguar and potentially with the CD unit. And sorry, I've got the camera in my hand here, and I have that too. And I bought that new from, I think it was I feel like it was from a KB Toy and Hobby. I don't know if they sold video games, but that's what I feel like it was. It was in the back, like the Jaguar was on its last leg when this thing came out. I went looking for this, and I found it for sale in the back, and I picked it up, and, Jaguar was basically liquidated at that point. Jaguar CDs were hard to find in general because nobody really wanted a Jaguar except Atari fans, and there weren't really any good CD games, because the company basically launched most of them itself, and the cartridges were really where the Jaguar shined. But they still, I don't know, I give Atari some credit. They still decided to release the CD unit just before they went and got bought out or whatever. I don't think this would have saved them by any measure. I think the writing was on the wall. The unfortunate thing was just that the Sony PlayStation just leaped over everyone and made it very difficult for anyone to compete. And Atari was just, they liquidated after that. So let's take a look at the console here. I have it kind of apart, but I've already taken it out of the box and tested it because I figured this video would be a little bit complex to put together by hand. So, base unit is here. Giant controller. This is actually an overlay for Aliens vs. Predator on the buttons itself. Sorry everything's dusty and dirty, but these things have been in the storage for a very long time. I do need to really kind of clean them, but not selling them or anything. I'm just kind of checking if they work. So we're not here to go through like the advanced history of the systems. Just some musings. So controller, base unit, cartridge up here. On the back, it's kind of interesting. You basically have an RF out, but you can get a official composite cable that kind of plugged into this weird sort of open expansion port and power. And then if you take the cartridge out, you've got the CD unit here. It kind of goes into the cartridge port, and it has its own power, so you have to have two power plugs. What are you going to do? And you would think that you could take your game and put it in there and play it if there's no CD in the drive, and you'd be wrong. At least not with like a traditional CD or whatever. So, yeah, this is actually for the memory card, which I have. Memory track. These are still available out there, and I don't think these are one of the few things for the Atari Jaguar, for whatever reason, aren't super expensive. Probably because there's not that many CDs. I think there was probably more memory tracks than there were CDs systems made or released. I don't know the numbers and the counts on this Jaguar CD, but there can't be that many because they tend to be in pretty good demand, and I just don't think anybody went and bought them. I just think, you know, there may be a warehouse somewhere that Atari's owners have that have a bunch of these sitting around or something. I don't know, but yeah. So it was a little bit of a struggle to get this one to work. I did. There is a lot of homebrew for this now, and Jaguar does use an encryption, and so you can get like a encryption CD that runs in this guy, and it'll allow. It's like a boot disk, and then it'll allow you to play any of the games or demos that are out there. You know, just download them, burn them with image burn, and then you got a perfect copy of a game. So I'll show you a demonstration of what that looks like and how that works. I'll also show you a couple of the pack-in titles for this. Not super great, but I'll show them to you. And I'll show you a few of the more popular game cartridges that I have. I used to have almost every game for the Atari Jaguar, and I kept those for many years, but I ran into some money trouble. And I don't collect games in general. I collect systems. So I was like, well, I'm just going to let these go because I needed the cash. And I sold all of them. And yeah, I could have got a lot more for them based on what people are paying for Jaguar today. But hindsight's 2020. You don't think that the crummy system is going to do well later on. But you know, it's because Hasbro, I think it was Hasbro that owns the rights to the Jaguar, kind of said, hey, you know, we're going to go ahead and open this console up and make it like an open source console. So like anybody can develop anything with it. If you want to make your own Jaguar, you can. You know, here's the encryption. They just gave it all away basically. So I don't know if they gave away like the trademarks and the games and all that kind of stuff. I just don't know that. But everything else was just like, you know, it's wide open out there. And so, yeah, a lot of people have embraced that and tried to make some really cool things with it, and they continue to develop things for it now. And you know, it's just unfortunate that there's just not enough hardware. I do understand that there's a pretty good emulator out there on the PC that'll play Jaguar games, and so you can download them and play them on there. It probably wouldn't be very hard to emulate this gamepad. I mean, you could probably get a standard D-pad with 3 buttons anywhere, and as far as the number pad goes, you could just map that to the PC's keyboard, and you know, you could probably emulate this and be able to play everything. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to see if it works, and it does work. But let's take a look at the video, and I'll walk you through a few demonstrations of the Atari Jaguar and the Jaguar CD in action. All right, so this is pretty much your standard Atari opening, and then it shows you their spinning cube, and then Tempest 2000. And this game by Lamasoft it's a really great game. You know, it's a rework of the original Tempest, and yeah, it's if you've never played Tempest 2000 or one of the later editions of it, and you have the opportunity to play it, as far as just as a regular game goes, it's really solid. Let's take a look at it here. And we're just going to play standard Tempest 2000. We're not going to use a key, whatever that is. Had a pretty good techno soundtrack, and you just you know, there was like some trackball modifications. I think you can still get some today. You can get like your controller, like with a trackball, or what do they call it? Like a spinning
A dial. Yeah, so you basically want to get these power-ups, and then it gives you the ability to do like more and more things, which is a hallmark of a lot of these Lamasoft titles. I'm sort of playing this with my glasses half on, so I can't quite see what I'm doing too well. Um, but if you get enough of these power-ups, you just start to become really a force in these games to and then it sort of gets really difficult when you don't have the pop-ups. Yeah, then you can start to jump. Yeah, this game was fairly popular in the arcade, and it's interesting because a lot of video games at the time in the 80s, I'd say it seems like maybe half of them were vector like this, and they didn't use traditional graphics. They used a vector scope, and we only ended up with one game console that actually used vector graphics, which was the Vectrex, and I do have one of those. It works. It's pretty old. It needs time to warm up. Probably could need to be recapped, but I'll eventually bring it to the list. And it's interesting because, it wasn't color. It didn't. You could use some sheets and everything, and it worked pretty good for what it was, but somebody could have probably made one that was a little bit more robust, and they probably could have had perfect ports of vector arcade games, and I don't know if that would be a hit, but it's a hard thing because there were so many graphical video games that people were of the mind that, hey, I'd rather play Pac-Man, Space Invaders than Asteroids and Red Baron or something. And I don't know. I guess I get it. You obviously had more flexibility with regular graphics, but the thing about the vector graphics is that you had, at the time, I think, you had a better memory footprint. You could do a lot more on the screen with a lot less memory. Because you didn't, you could draw these things sort of as you went. Maybe you could do that with graphics, too, at the time. I don't know. A lot of that was like, all of that stuff was like done a lot differently than it is today. But anyway, all right, so this is Tempest 2000. I'm going to play the whole game. Got to wiggle these cartridges to get them to go right. So that's that. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Aliens versus Predator game. Let's see if we can get that to work here. It can be a bit of a challenge sometimes. Because you get this red screen because these cartridge ports need to be deoxidized, I think. And I did buy some deoxidizer. It just hasn't arrived yet. But I can usually get these to work if I just fiddle with them a little bit. All right, let me pause the video and I'll get this to work and be right back. Just don't know how many tries it's going to take, and there's no point in having you sit here through this. All right, let's see if this guy works here. This is going to be Aliens versus Predator. Took about a dozen tries to get this to go, but it's just because my cartridge, they're a little bit oxidized, I think. Cartridges, always a struggle. So this was interesting because the guys I hung out with were a little bit older than me at my work when this came out, and Eric Wolpaw had an Atari Jaguar. He was a firm believer that the Jaguar was powerful. A lot of people online were talking about how powerful it was, and he bought a lot of games, and he liked Tempest 2000, and he was looking at it, but again, it was one of those things where like it was just obvious that the PlayStation, due to its geometric processor that Sony had put into that thing, that it was just better. And so when games like this came out, it was interesting because the guys I knew thought that this was not at like the level of like say the current technology at the time, right? Doom had like curved walls and surfaces and things like that. So being that this was using, what do they call this, octagonal? I'm not sure if that's right. Yeah, maps. That it was a lesser game. And I understood that logic. The other thing is that like it's not supposed to have loading times because it's a game cartridge. But what the developers did is they, in order to save memory or whatever it was at the time, is they used the Jaguar's ability to compress levels down. And so when you're going into certain areas, the door takes quite a while to open. Not that door that I just went through, but rather a door. So I can't get this ahead of time or anything. I always think that, can I just bring the med kit with me? Some places let you bring the med kit with you. Other times, no, And so that kind of made it so it still felt like it had load times. And the creatures are 2D sprites. But to be fair, that's a lot like Doom. It's a lot, it's not like Quake. But, I don't know. I mean, in retrospect, looking back on this, it doesn't look too bad. And I mean, it's everything's the same and all that kind of stuff. But, if you look at some of those early PlayStation first-person shooters, not very good either. Yeah, so there's an alien. And you got to watch out and not step on the blood because it's acid or whatever. And you just shoot the crate? Or do the crates even? Apparently not. They're just barriers, I guess. Or you need like a... How do I switch? I guess I can't switch guns because I don't have any other guns. So I guess a lot of this is not interactive. You just have to run over it, which I think is more like the Doom model. Pulse rifle rounds collected. Yeah, you just run over stuff. So it's all in all, it's just your regular kind of shooting game. I just kind of want to show you one of those long door pauses, just so you have a little bit of an idea of what I'm talking about. And it's not terrible by any means. I just think, like, yeah, comparatively to other first-person shooters, a lot of these game consoles just weren't up to the job. And, PCs just had more memory, and at the time, there were PCs with much better processors than any of the game consoles. Still true today. And, so the, am I going in circles here? I can't even tell. Or are those other guys that I ran into? I'm trying to follow a normal map type logic here where I'm hugging the left wall so that I don't cover my ground twice. It's like you need to have a breadcrumb. Kind of says, hey, so this feels like a lot like, look at that guy. Can I shoot that guy through the fence? Probably not. So, I got hit by the acid. I guess you could look at this and be like, wow, this builds suspense. There's some tension in the air. You don't know what's going to come out from behind you and stuff. And again, you look at those early games on other consoles. That may be true. This may have some charm. Being ahead of a lot of other games in terms of that stuff. And you can be like the Marine, you can be the Predator, you can be the Alien. With the Predator, you get some infravision, and I don't know what you do. I think on the Alien you can do something else. I don't know. How many times I got to run over this acid? This is nonsense. Ouch. Where am I going, man? What's going on? My headphone batteries are going to die here. But let's find a door. Is this the door? That's not the door. Oh, so here we go. At least we get to see a change in, Jesus. I get enough ammunition. Kind of leaves me in a predicament, though, right? Now I got to walk on acid through like 3 of these things. Hot, hot, hot. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Oh, you want some? I'm going to die here. My health is very low. Looks like I'm kind of in like, what's this brig? Looks like I'm kind of in a medical ward. So I must have escaped from a brig. Okay. You got a health pack? Dead person on the ground? Well, I got a security card. Great, except I need a health pack so we can go through that one door so I can show the viewer Aliens versus Predator. Is this it? So here's an elevator. Let's see what this does. Oh, maybe I just have to pick at the wall. No? This one? Maybe I got to do something before I can go in the elevator. Kind of a bummer. More shotgun rounds. How about a health pack? There we go. It's good that people just leave medkits laying on the ground. And, you know, this is all digital controls, so I don't have a mouse, so I have to kind of look left and right by hand. And I don't know if this game has secrets like Wolfenstein, so that... I don't know, man. Is there like a strategy to this so that I kill these things so they're not in my way, burning me all the time? Here's some goodies. Shotgun rounds collected. Pulse rifle rounds collected. Aliens are gonna mess you up. Who wants it? Come on. Bullshit. Some medkit over here. Do. Oh, it's just a dead doctor. Here's a medkit. Is there a way I can switch guns now? Anything? Pulse rifle rounds, shotgun rounds, pulse rifle rounds. I am the Colonial Marine, and I'm gonna shoot you in the face with my shotgun, aliens. And I think there's like face huggers and stuff in this. And those are really like a pain in the ass, if I recall. But there's been different Aliens games over the years, so I'm not 100% on what is and is not. I just want to find the door that takes a long time to open. Oh, there's a smart gun. That's kind of cool. If you've never seen Aliens, you're missing out. Oh, that's not a smart gun. It's just a dead body. I should have put a smart gun in there. Alien is coming to say hello. Luckily for you, there's shotgun rounds everywhere. So, I don't know. I guess I could play this all day. You're just going to have to take my word on it that there's a door that takes a long time to open. But, I mean, on the whole, this isn't terrible. So, I mean, I think this is average. But at the time, I can see why a lot of gamers like this. Maybe the technology behind it, it doesn't have the curved walls and everything that Doom had, so it wasn't as far along. But, I mean, overall, it still plays a decent game. So, I mean, I would definitely recommend it. unless you're just being really picky. So let's move on to, I'm just going to not take as long. I'll show you a few other games I have, and then we'll switch to the CD drive, okay? All right, here we go. I'm going to pause it really quick to make it easier. I'm going to make it quicker. See if you guys can even hear me. Okay. I had to put my glasses on there for a second. And this is this was a fun game. They made a second one as well. I think there may even have been a third one. I don't know. I think one came out for the new one, which I also own a new one. We'll eventually talk about that. But I mean, this was kind of like a giant mech game, and it's pretty fun. I mean, you basically get to destroy everything, and walk around in a giant mech. Obviously you start off with just something simple. You mount it to your mech, and all systems go. And it's just kind of like a city, and you just forget exactly what you do. I don't know if you have to get all the tanks or what, but they're driving around trying to shoot you, like this guy over here. And and it's got some pretty good how do I walk? Forget how to even walk in this game. Yeah, you can speed up your turn radius by using the button, or turn speed, so that's kind of a good thing. Blow the water tower up. No water for anybody in this town. There we go. I think you have to destroy all the tanks. And then there's like other mechs, I think, that you have to fight too. How the hell do I walk? Oh, there's a helicopter. Everybody wants a piece of me and I can't walk. It's probably like a mode or something. Did I hold a button down to do it? Not that button. There we go. Yeah, so I have to accelerate. And, yeah, there's tank. So there's some simple texture mapping, but as I mentioned previously, for whatever reason, there wasn't a lot of texture mapping used on these Atari games, and it's probably performance related. The interesting thing about the Jaguar is that it had a custom 64-bit processor, graphics processor, that you could certainly program to do, certain things, to make the game have a lot more features and effects. But it also had essentially a 6800 Motorola chip in it, which, if you're familiar with that chip, it's the same chip that you'll find in, like, say, the Sega Genesis. You'll find a more advanced one in the CD32. There were a lot of game systems, like the Amiga computer ran on the 6800. I think Apple computers ran on 6800 or a version thereof. And so, that's the last one. No, there's a red guy over here now. And so, my point is that rather than the developers sort of using the capability of the processor that was inside the Jaguar, the 64-bit processor, they used this, effectively the 16-bit 6800 processor, which was, you know, dated. So this is kind of like, you know, you would be developing something for the Sega Genesis. And so, you know, with some obvious, like, better vector-based graphics, but not like the sort of processing that you're going to need to do, like, you know, like texture mapping and more effects. So a lot of the power of the Jaguar just wasn't apparent unless you sort of took advantage of it, and most people didn't. Because, I mean, part of it is just, you know, people had deadlines. This was like a, you know, a system that basically Atari was just paying people to be like, make a game for it, and, you know, we'll help you promote it and bankroll it and everything else. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do in this game, but anyway. And so, you know, that just didn't go so well for Atari. All right, let me show you the CD drive here. And first, I'll show you how it works with the decryptor disk, in case you ever wanted to homebrew. And so, yeah, so people didn't really take advantage of it very much, but I think some of the later games did. Like, you know, developers had a little bit more time to tinker and improve things, and that ultimately resulted in some of the later games being better, which is true of anything. I mean, if you look at the first edition of the PlayStation games, they were all rubbish for the most part, and but there were some good ones too, of course. Ridge Racer and Toshinden and everything, but launch titles, you know, they just had some issues. All right, so this is the Jagtopia reboot CD. So you can just download this Jaguar, and once it's loaded up, then you can put in any of the copied discs that people made of the legitimate software. Hit your button, and away it goes. So it's loading right now, and you know, normally there probably would be like a Atari Jaguar loading thing or something, but because this is using sort of I didn't put the memory track in. So this is Battle Morph. This is considered one of the better games on the CD system. There weren't very many, but this was one that people, you know, looked at and said, "Oh, that one's pretty cool. It's all right." You know, I'm looking at it in 2021 eyes and stuff, but you know, they did more. So this is like a later game. It's on the CD. Here you can see, you know, at least with this video segment, there's some texture mapping going on. You get into the game, there's less of that, and you know. I don't know. I think back on it, and you know what happened is in that period of my life when I was, you know, not collecting consoles, didn't make as much money, etc. Average guy. I didn't go out and buy a PlayStation when it first came out. Part of the reason was because my friend Eric had one. He got it from Japan, and so there was no point in both of us having one because there was other consoles out there to try. You know, like I can try all of these games that he's getting for a PlayStation, and I can get a Sega Saturn, so I got a Sega Saturn. And, you know, as much as the PlayStation did much better than the Sega Saturn still had some really great games. So it wasn't like, and it had some good ports, too, and it wasn't a complete, you know, it wasn't a complete travesty or something of a game system. It was a pretty good, you know, system. It just, again, the PlayStation just had that geometric engine and just did really well. All right, let's see. Press B to play game. And so, yeah, we'll just look at the demo. And so, you know, I had Sega Saturn for a while, and then I had a CD32, which is when I get to that, I'll talk about that. And that was kind of a sort of a bust. And then I got a Jaguar, and that was, of course, a bit of a bust. I also had the 3DO, right? Eric had a 3DO as well, and he had a Jaguar as well. And the 3DO was an interesting thing too, because it came out a lot earlier than a lot of other systems, but it was really expensive when it came out. But it was sort of like the first console that you would get that had like that full motion video thing going on for the most part. And so, it was really an interesting system. And we'll talk about that when I get to it. But so there was all these other 32-bit systems that were out, and there's more than that, and I can't even remember everything off the top of my head. But, so it's going through all of them. And when I look back at the Atari, it's like there's a lot of potential here. Like they had the ability to make good games, and they just, this is probably for the memory track, which I don't have that hooked up. We're going to make it easy. Let's select that. And so I think it's just one of these things where, like, if you took PlayStation out, right? Like, take PlayStation out of the equation, and you had the Atari, and you had these other systems, Saturn, CD32 wouldn't have been there, but whatever. These systems would have been competitive with one another. These are all like marginal upgrades to the 16-bit era, right? So you're coming off of Genesis and Super Nintendo, and if you look at like Star Fox or whatever, and you go to this is a pretty good jump from Star Fox in terms of capabilities and graphics and all this sort of stuff. Not that Star Fox is any slouch. Nintendo always makes good games, but they had that put in helper processors in that just to get it to work in the way they wanted it to inside the Super Nintendo. So, and then you could shoot missiles and stuff. I don't know what the point of this game is. I mean, I don't have the instructions. I can find them online. But anyway, so that's a game running off of the demo disc. I'll show you a couple of the pack-in games. So if you look at it like with that, if you look at it with that kind of, like you're saying where the industry is going, you're one of these many game companies that are like, hey, we can jump in here now and release a game release a game system that's going to be competitive against the Super Nintendo and the the Sega system. And a lot of these systems were. It's just that Sony, the engineers there decided, hey, we're going to create this microchip, that's going to really help with 3D processing. And it was kind of revolutionary at the time, but it was just a way of really sort of boosting the ability of the system to, do 3D games with low-end hardware. And it just, really did such a good job at that, and that's where everything was going, that it just defeated all the other systems. Like the Sega Saturn did kind of well in Japan, because in Japan, 2D fighters like Street Fighter II and many of the other 2D fighters that came out around that time were extremely popular, and the Saturn allowed you to expand the memory of the system by adding a cartridge, and you could play these games with more animation, right? So more frames of animation, more character animation, because they could fit into more memory. So they were more close, or they were closer to arcade ports. Well, PlayStation couldn't do that. PlayStation had 2 megs of RAM or something, and so it just didn't have enough. 2D fighters just weren't great on it at all, and so it concentrated more on doing some of that 3D fighting stuff, which the Sega Saturn was also really great at. And so in Japan, the Saturn did pretty well. PlayStation still, I think, did better, but Sony just has a big footprint over there, but it didn't do bad. But in America, PlayStation 3D was the thing, and everybody wanted to have sort of the PC experience on the home console. And so, a lot of these consoles, like the Atari one here, this maybe could have had a memory boost and gained from that if it would have gone in that direction. you know what I'm saying? And somebody could have like definitely gotten some more life out of this and made some great stuff for it. It just was dealing with an unusual circumstance um, uh, against the PlayStation, which just had this leap in technology um, with their engine, with their processor. And unfortunately, both Atari and Commodore bet the house on trying to come up with a competitive game system, and lost their businesses. And I think for the most part, Sega as well spent a lot of money and they made some really great games, but they spent too much money and it just didn't turn into the kind of sales. PlayStation was too far ahead, and really. A company like Sega that had the bank, should have made the Dreamcast even a little bit better to compete against the potential second run of the PlayStation 2. But all that stuff we'll talk about as we go forward. Most of this is just my musings. Everybody has different experiences. One thing I wanted to show you really quick is that this actually comes with the Virtual Light Machine, the VLM, and it is just a way of displaying graphics to your music, which was kind of a thing back then. And I can't quite remember how to change this around. VLM volume. There's a way to like pick these. Changing the track. Okay. And I know the CD skipping. That's not the CD player's fault. I have a very dirty turnbuckle CD in there. It's kind of scratched up. Let's see if I can see if any of the tracks on this thing work. Maybe this one. How change the. I think you were like supposed to punch in a number. Yeah, that's what it is. So like you punch in which one you want. I'm remembering this now. So like you would say, give me visualization 15, 1.5, and then it would switch to 1.5. So that's now 1.5. Or you could say, give me 37, and you would get this instead. And so you could kind of figure out these, let's see, 46. And if you look up some of the old history about this Virtual Light Machine, the guy from Lamasoft that made it, he did a lot of really cool things, and he got ripped off. And I don't know if there were lawsuits or what, but I think there might have been some. And he ultimately, he sort of, visual effects with music is not new, but it's the way he was processing a lot of this stuff. It was kind of his thing. And the new one has these sort of effects in it as well. And it's probably pretty good if you just sit around and get high or something if you watch it. Virtual Light Machine and all of the different things that it can do, but because there's so many, there's 100 different things, and you can modify them. Plus, the music that you're listening to, you can kind of just sit here and play with this, and it still plays CDs, so you can hook it up to your TV today if you get like a HDMI converter and kind of just have some groovy displays going on there. $2.99 looks like. Yeah. So that's the Virtual Light Machine with a little bit of Don Anderson's old band Turnbuckle skipping for us. So let me switch that out. And Jaguar angry. Why did you take forth my CD and not shut off the power? I don't know. I want to see what would happen. Crazy Jaguar. So Blue Lightning is okay, and VidGrid is dumb. VidGrid is a music video slide thing. I'm not even going to show you VidGrid. It's just that horrible. But I'll show you Blue Lightning. This is just a pack-in game, so this would be sort of the initial experience that you would have with it. And not great, but I think like if you spend some time with the game, it's actually a pretty good game. But I don't know. It's like as a pack-in game, it's lackluster to me. But so that's the standard Jaguar opening. Get some of those VLM effects in the background, and then it will load. But yeah, if you actually want to play a cartridge on this, unfortunately you have to like remove the CD to put the cartridge in. So that wear and tear is just going to break your CD system down in your cartridge port. But I think, the fact that Atari was able to even release the CD drive, pretty much a miracle. Blue Lightning. Oh, cheap FMV. Let's see. Play now. That's me. But it's hard looking back at these things and how bad they are. But hindsight's 20/20, because I do recall the early PlayStation and the early 3DO games, etc., and none of them are much better than this. I mean, they have crappy FMV graphics, intros, and yeah, we all remember the good games, but if you go back and look at a lot of those bad games, there's lots of trash. A lot of game companies just didn't make the transition from 2D to 3D very well, and that's a bit of a shame, because I think they felt like they had to, and I don't think they necessarily had to, as long as they just had a good game, and select plane. Can I pick a different plane? This is your last plane. Be careful out there. I guess not. I guess that's my last plane. Yeah, because you didn't have to, and some companies did well. I mean, like, Square, at the time, Squaresoft, before they became Square Enix, they tried different things, with their RPGs. They had some, top-down way to look at stuff in 3D at a dungeon. We obviously have all seen Final Fantasy VII, and but there was also like Legend of Mana and things like that that was still 2D, and shoot a missile. You guys are all gonna die, and I'm gonna shoot you with my plane. Oh, I'm supposed to escort that? I don't know what we're doing. I didn't read the mission briefing. You think I'm a hotshot pilot? I'm just gonna do stuff? That's not gonna happen. Follow the arrow. Keep it safe. So, I mean, this is kind of almost like an afterburner thing, but I think it may be a little bit more advanced in that you get to pick your loadout and the type of plane you have and everything. Well, that's it. That's my last plane. If I bailed out, I'm lucky, but no. Oh, it's going half-mast. So, yeah, don't ask me why the Atari Jaguar and CD systems run for about $1,000 on eBay right now, and games are over $100, etc. It's not worth it. It's not. Homebrew to me is cool, but for the most part, you can get homebrew on the PC. You can get homebrew for lots of different platforms, and you can play most of these games that are homebrew on the Jag emulators that are online, which actually work really well. So I don't know why there's this aftermarket. I mean, I get the collector part of it. People want to own all these old systems that they didn't get when they were young. But I don't know why people would shell out $1,000 for this, because it's I don't know. It's not that rare, You can find them online. It's just that they're that expensive. So, all right. Well, that's the Atari Jaguar. Sorry if it's okay. I mean, it's got some good games. It does. And we've only looked at a few of them, and there's a lot of other ones that are actually pretty good for this system. And so, not knocking it, it's a fun game system to own, and it has a pretty good library of stuff to play on it, which a lot of failed game systems do not. So overall, it works, and we're going to keep it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you here again for the next one.